Here we have a table of 802.11 wireless protocols that you should know for the A+ exams. I've broken this table down into 3 columns: the version, the maximum data rate, and the frequency. And I've separated it into 2 sections with some of the older wireless protocols and some of the newer wireless protocols. Now, all of these are based on the IEEE 802.11 standard, and each one is a different version of that standard. So let's take a look at these and give an example after we're done. And I've listed these alphabetically by version letter. We'll start with 802.11a. Maximum data rate is 54 megabits per second. The frequency it uses to transmit data is 5 gigahertz. Next is 802.11b. That has a maximum data rate of 11 megabits per second, which is not nearly enough for today's applications and the streaming of media. It sends data on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency. Then we have 802.11g, which is 54 megabits per second, and transmits on 2.4 gigahertz. So you probably won't see these protocols very often, but let's show an example of them. And I'm connected to a typical wireless access point / router, and I'm in the wireless 2.4 gigahertz section. So this particular router can send data on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency and the 5 gigahertz frequency. As far as 2.4 goes, we have options here. We can work with 802.11b or G, or 802.11b, G, or N. But generally, this is going to be the slower frequency. It's going to have less range, and so it's less often used. Let's go back to our table here and take a look at some of the newer protocols. 802.11n, which is known as Wi-Fi 4, has a maximum data rate of 600 megabits per second, but this can transmit data on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, as we just saw, but also the 5 gigahertz frequency. Next, we have two that are going to be much more common: 802.11ac, which is known as Wi-Fi 5, has a maximum data rate of 3.5 gigabits per second, can only transmit on 5 gigahertz. And then we have 802.11ax, which is known as Wi-Fi 6. And in fact, it's broken down into 2 sections: Wi-Fi 6, which can transmit on the 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz frequencies, and also Wi-Fi 6 enhanced, or Wi-Fi 6E, which can transmit on the 6 gigahertz frequency. And the maximum data rate supported by 802.11ax is 9.6 gigabits per second. Now, the data rates that are listed in this table are just potential maximums. Typical numbers will be less, and they're limited by several factors, such as interference and the distance of your wireless device from the transmitter, from the wireless access point. And that becomes more apparent when you get into the newer and more powerful protocols. Let's show an example of a couple of the newer protocols on 5 gigahertz on our router here. And so this wireless access point of this router can transmit data on 802.11a and n on 5 gigahertz, or 802.11a, n, and ac. Other routers will be able to do AX. Definitely an exam alert here. Know the frequencies used by each of these 802.11 versions. Know that, for example, 802.11n can transmit on 5 and 2.4 gigahertz. Know that 802.11ac can only transmit on 5 gigahertz, and so on. Now, one thing I left out of this table is coverage, or distance. It's very difficult to put an exact number on the maximum wireless transmission distances for any of these standards because it depends on the signal strength of the wireless access point's antenna, the use of additional features and technologies, and also environmental factors such as obstructions and interference. But generally, the rule of thumb is this: the wireless range will increase with each standard in the table. So you're going to get more distance as you progress through these standards. And a final note here: new technologies are being developed as of the recording of this video that will use higher frequency ranges and can transmit much more data per second. Always be on the alert for emerging networking technologies. And so, for example, 802.11be will most likely become the Wi-Fi 7 protocol. As of the recording of this video, it's not definite, but that is the proposed standard. It's 2022 as of the recording of this video. But that most likely will be the case. One way or another, there will be a Wi-Fi 7, and it can transmit at a theoretical 40 gigabits per second. And it will have the ability to do the same frequency ranges as 802.11ax. So always be on the lookout for new technologies.